A tale of two nations. In the heart of West Africa, a young man steps out of a dusty pickup truck, his military fatigues blending with the red earth beneath his boots. He is not flanked by bodyguards or a flashy entourage. Instead, he kneels to greet a group of village elders, their faces weathered by years of hardship. This is Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old leader of Burkina Faso, a country battered by conflict and poverty but now buzzing with a new kind of energy. Across the continent in East Africa, a different scene unfolds. In Nairobi's crowded streets, police officers, symbols of order, rip off their badges, their voices hoarse from chanting, "Enough is enough." They are not just striking for pay, they are rebelling against a system that's left them and their country gasping for air. Two nations, two leaders, two paths. Burkina Faso is building hope from the ground up, led by a man who dares to say no to global powers. Kenya is unraveling, its people pushed to the edge by policies that feel like betrayal. What makes these stories so different? Is it the leaders, the policies, or the trust, or lack of it, between the people and those who govern them? This is a 15,500-word journey into the heart of two African nations at a crossroads, where leadership isn't just politics, it's a battle for the soul of the people. Burkina Faso, the spark of a revolution. In Burkina Faso, something extraordinary is happening. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who seized power in a 2022 coup, isn't your typical head of state. Born in 1988 in the small town of Bondakui, Traoré grew up far from the elite circles of global capitals. He studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou, where he was known as a quiet but fierce defender of his peers, rising as a delegate in the Marxist-leaning National Association of Students of Burkina Faso, ANEB. His military career took him to the front lines of the Mali War with the UN's MINUSMA peacekeeping force, where he earned praise for his courage. By 2020, he was a captain leading an artillery regiment in Kaya, a northern town plagued by jihadist violence. When Traoré ousted interim President Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba in September 2022, it wasn't just a power grab. It was a response to a nation in crisis. Jihadist attacks had displaced over 2 million people, and the government seemed paralyzed. Traoré, at just 34, became the world's second youngest head of state. His first move? A bold rejection of the status quo. "We don't need loan conditions. We need living conditions," he declared, turning down an IMF loan that came with strings attached, like austerity measures that often hit the poor hardest. Western media called him reckless, but for Burkina, it was a moment of pride. For decades, their leaders had bowed to foreign powers, accepting loans that trapped the country in debt. Traoré's no wasn't just about money, it was about dignity. A leader among the people. Traoré's leadership style is raw and unpolished. He doesn't deliver speeches from ivory towers. Instead, he visits villages, sits on the ground, and listens. In Kaya, he met farmers who'd lost land to corporate deals and promised to return it. In Ouagadougou, he spoke to students about building schools with local resources. His actions match his words. When he rejected foreign loans, he didn't just stop there. He launched a national forum, inviting village chiefs, students, women, and traders to discuss a budget. "If you were president, what would you cut to protect food and schools?" he asked. The result was a wave of collective action. Farmers donated land for community projects. Young volunteers repaired schools. Communities guarded power stations from vandals, not for pay, but for belief in a shared goal. Traoré's policies are rooted in self-reliance. He nationalized 2 gold mines, previously owned by foreign firms, and opened Burkina Faso's first gold refinery to keep profits at home. He launched an agricultural offensive, boosting production and achieving 4 to 6% GDP growth. Public sector wages rose by 50%, while Traoré himself refused a presidential salary, sticking to his captain's pay. He's also pushed cultural pride, swapping colonial-era uniforms for locally made fabrics. These moves echo the legacy of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader from 1983 to 1987, who renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, land of the upright people. Like Sankara, Traoré is seen as a son of the soil, a leader who feels like one of the people. Education is freedom. When international organizations cut funding to Burkina Faso's universities, claiming they didn't meet global standards, Traoré didn't flinch. Instead, he turned the crisis into an opportunity. At the University of Ouagadougou, students and teachers launched a self-supporting engineering program. Older students mentored younger ones for free. In Koudougou, farmers set up weekend schools to teach kids about agriculture using local knowledge, not imported textbooks. Education became a movement, a way to say, we don't need your money, we have our minds. This wasn't government-funded. It was people-driven, sparked by Traoré's belief that Burkina Faso could stand on its own. The cost of defiance. Traoré's defiance hasn't come without a price. Western media outlets have painted Burkina Faso as unstable, and international credit agencies downgraded its economy despite steady growth. Foreign banks pulled out, and domestic banks face barriers in global transactions. In April 2025, Traoré's government accused neighboring Côte d'Ivoire of backing a coup attempt, a claim Côte d'Ivoire denied. Yet, these challenges only fueled Traoré's popularity. On April 30th, 2025, thousands rallied in Ouagadougou, waving Burkina Faso and Russian flags, chanting, "Because Colin Powell lied, Iraq was destroyed. Barack Obama lied, Gaddafi was killed. But this time, their lies won't affect us." Solidarity protests erupted in Ghana, Kenya, and even London, showing Traoré's influence stretches far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Kenya, a system on the brink. Now, let's cross the continent to Kenya, where a different story unfolds. In July 2024, Nairobi's streets erupted in chaos. Police officers, the very enforcers of law, shed their uniforms and joined protesters, chanting, "Enough is enough." In a viral video, one officer tore off his badge and said, "I didn't betray my country. I just don't want to serve a system that has no humanity." This wasn't just about unpaid salaries or cut allowances. It was a cry from a nation pushed to its breaking point. Kenya, often hailed as East Africa's economic powerhouse, was crumbling under the weight of its own policies. Inflation soared past 20%, making food and fuel unaffordable for millions. The Kenyan shilling plummeted, losing value against the dollar. Between 2021 and 2024, the government borrowed over $9 billion from the IMF and other global lenders. These loans came with harsh conditions: cut public spending, reduce salaries, raise taxes. The result? Police officers went months without pay. Teachers and healthcare workers faced slashed budgets. The middle class, once hopeful, felt squeezed. The protests weren't just about money. They were about a system that seemed to care more about foreign creditors than its own people. A crisis of trust. Kenya's leaders followed the IMF's playbook to the letter, but it backfired. There was no public forum, no call for collective action, just top-down orders enforced by a police force that was itself struggling. When even the police joined the protests, it sent a shockwave through the nation. If the enforcers of order were rebelling, what hope was there for ordinary citizens? The protest grew, with students, nurses, and teachers joining in, filling the streets and social media with their anger. This wasn't random chaos, it was organized. Groups called Financial Justice Commissions began analyzing IMF loan agreements, demanding transparency. Why are we borrowing so much? Where's the money going? They asked. It was a new kind of awakening, one that questioned not just policies but the entire system. Education as protest. In Kenya, the spark of Burkina Faso's story began to catch. Inspired by Traoré's rejection of foreign dependency, Kenyan youth forums started asking, if Burkina Faso can teach itself, why are we waiting for foreign scholarships? The idea of education as a form of protest took root. Students began organizing free community classes, teaching skills like coding and farming. These weren't government programs. They were grassroots movements, born from frustration with a system that prioritized debt repayment over human potential. The contrast with Burkina Faso was stark. While Traoré's leadership inspired action, Kenya's leaders seemed disconnected, their policies extinguishing hope rather than igniting it. Comparing leadership, trust, and transformation. Burkina Faso and Kenya face similar challenges: debt, rising costs, and insecurity, but their paths diverge sharply. Traoré's leadership is about transparency and collective action. By rejecting IMF loans and inviting public input, he's built trust. His national forums aren't just talk. They've led to tangible results. Farmers donating land, students fixing schools, communities protecting infrastructure. In Kenya, the opposite has happened. IMF-driven policies have eroded trust, leaving even the police feeling betrayed. The The protests show a nation waking up, but without a unifying vision, the anger risks spiraling into chaos. Policies that inspire versus policies that exhaust. Traore's policies focus on self-reliance, nationalizing gold mines, building refineries, and boosting agriculture have given Burkina a sense of ownership. His refusal to take a presidential salary and his push for local uniforms signal that is one of them. In Kenya, IMF-mandated cuts have hit the most vulnerable hardest. There's no public dialogue, no shared goal, just orders from above. The result is a fractured society where even the police feel like victims. Education, the silent revolution. In Burkina Faso, education has become a movement. When foreign funding was cut, people didn't wait for handouts. They created their own systems. Students taught students, farmers taught kids, and knowledge became a tool for independence. In Kenya, the idea is just beginning to take hold. Inspired by Burkina Faso, Kenyans are starting to see education as a way to fight back, not just a privilege for the elite. But without leadership to channel this energy, it risks fizzling out. Trust, the heart of the matter. At its core, this story is about trust. Traore built it by listening and acting. He doesn't promise miracles. He promises hard work and invites his people to join him. In Kaya, farmers are making fertilizers from local materials. In Bobo-Dioulasso, students are designing clay houses. In Ouagadougou, people are planting trees and fixing schools. Why? Because Traore made them believe they could. In Kenya, trust is in short supply. Leaders who follow foreign directives over their people's needs have left a void. The protests are a sign of awakening, but without trust, they may not lead to lasting change. The bigger picture, a continent awakening. Burkina Faso and Kenya are more than isolated stories. They are part of a larger shift in Africa. Traore's defiance has sparked a pan-African movement, with his face on T-shirts and murals from Mali to Nigeria. His rejection of the CFA franc, a currency tied to France, and his alliance with Russia and the Sahel states signal a break from colonial legacies. In Kenya, the protests reflect a growing frustration with neo-colonial systems that prioritize foreign interests over local needs. Both nations are at a turning point, but their paths show the power of leadership. Traore's Burkina Faso is building a future through collective action. Kenya's awakening is still raw, its future uncertain. Which path lasts? Angry resistance, like Kenya's, can shake a system, but it often leaves chaos. A revolution built on responsibility, like Burkina Faso's, can last generations. Farmers making fertilizers, students designing houses, women baking bread. These are proof that trust in leadership can transform a nation. In Kenya, the protests are a cry for change, but without a leader to channel that energy, they risk burning out. If you were a citizen, would you join Kenya's protests, demanding accountability, or pick up a tool in Burkina Faso, building something new? Both are vital, but one feels like a spark that could light the way for generations. Conclusion, the power of belief. In Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré has ignited a revolution not with guns or speeches, but with belief. He has shown that a leader who trusts his people can inspire them to rebuild a nation. In Kenya, the protests reveal a people desperate for change, but betrayed by a system that listens to foreign powers over its own. The difference lies in leadership that inspires versus leadership that exhausts. As Africa stands at a crossroads, the stories of Burkina Faso and Kenya ask us all, what kind of leader would you follow? One who promises the world or one who builds it with you?